The phone rang at exactly 3:47 in the afternoon. I remember the time because I had just glanced at the kitchen clock, mentally calculating how long until I needed to leave to pick up Lily from Riverside Elementary. The lasagna was in the oven, filling our small Alexandria townhouse with the smell of garlic and tomato sauce. Outside the window, October leaves swirled across Oakmont Drive in shades of amber and rust. I almost didn't answer. The number was blocked, and Nathan had been gone for 6 weeks on what he called a consultation trip to Eastern Europe. Our conversations during his absence had been brief and carefully worded, always at predetermined times, never spontaneous. This call broke pattern, and in the carefully constructed world I had built around my husband's absences, broken patterns meant danger. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. But something made me pick up. Maybe it was intuition. Maybe it was the particular quality of silence that existed in the half-second before the line connected. Vanessa. His voice was low, controlled, but underneath I heard something I had never heard before in 12 years of marriage. Fear. Listen very carefully. Don't interrupt. Don't ask questions. Just listen. My hand tightened around the phone. Through the kitchen window, I could see Mrs. Patterson across the street watering her chrysanthemums, completely unaware that my entire world was about to fracture. In exactly 18 minutes, you need to leave the house. Take Lily from school. Don't go home first. There's a bag in the back of your closet, behind the winter coats, blue duffel. Everything you need is there. Drive to the address written on the paper inside. Do not call anyone. Do not tell anyone where you're going. Not Claire. Not your parents. No one. Nathan, what, Vanessa? The sharpness in his voice cut through my rising panic. They know about Lily. They know about you. You have 18 minutes before they realize I made this call. If you're still in that house when they arrive, I can't protect you. Do you understand what I'm telling you? The lasagna timer went off, a cheerful beeping that belonged to a different universe, one where the most pressing concern was whether dinner would be ready on time. Who knows? Who's coming? People who want to use you to get to me. People who won't hesitate. His voice dropped even lower. I made choices, Vanessa. Choices I thought would keep you safe. I was wrong. Now you need to trust every instruction I've given you. The bag. The address. 18 minutes is now 16. Go. The line went dead. For 3 full seconds, I stood frozen in my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, listening to the hollow silence of a disconnected call. Then my body took over where my mind couldn't follow. I grabbed my purse and car keys, pulled the lasagna from the oven without even turning off the heat, and ran upstairs to our bedroom. The closet smelled like Nathan's cologne and the lavender sachets I kept among the sweaters. I shoved aside winter coats I hadn't thought about since March and found it. A blue canvas duffel bag I had never seen before, heavy and densely packed. Inside, wrapped in a plastic freezer bag, was a thick envelope. I didn't stop to open it. 14 minutes. I threw the duffel in the trunk of my Honda, reversed out of the driveway so fast I clipped the mailbox, and drove toward Lily's school with my heart hammering against my ribs. Traffic was light on Seminary Road. Every red light felt like an eternity. Every car behind me looked suspicious. Riverside Elementary sat nestled among old oak trees, its brick facade warm and familiar. I had walked Lily to these doors every morning for 3 years. I knew every teacher, every crossing guard, every crack in the sidewalk. Now I pulled into the circular drive with my hands shaking so badly I could barely shift into park. The front office was bright and smelled like photocopier toner and the secretary's peppermint tea. Mrs. Kowalski looked up from her computer with a friendly smile that faltered when she saw my face. I need to take Lily out of class. Family emergency. Oh dear. Is everything all right? I just need her. Now, please. Something in my voice must have communicated urgency because Mrs. Kowalski didn't ask another question. She picked up the phone and called Lily's classroom. 3 minutes later, my daughter appeared in the doorway, her frozen backpack hanging off one shoulder, her face lit with surprise and delight at this unexpected break in routine. "Mommy. Are we going somewhere fun?" I signed her out with a hand that didn't feel like my own, walked her to the car, buckled her into her booster seat, and pulled out of the parking lot. In my rearview mirror, I saw a black SUV with tinted windows turn onto the school street. It could have been nothing. It could have been a parent running late for pickup. But Nathan's voice echoed in my head. "They know about Lily." I took 3 unnecessary turns, watching the mirror. The SUV didn't follow. But I didn't slow down until we were on Interstate 66 heading west, Alexandria falling away behind us, and Lily asking questions I couldn't answer. "Where's Daddy? When's he coming home? Why did you get me early? Are we going on an adventure?" "Yes, baby," I said, my voice somehow steady even as everything inside me shook. "We're going on an adventure." I met Nathan Harper on the coldest day of January, 7 years into my career as a pediatric nurse at Children's National Hospital in Washington, D.C. The emergency room was packed with kids suffering from a brutal flu season, parents anxious and exhausted, the air thick with antiseptic and worry. I was on my 14th hour of a double shift, running on coffee and muscle memory, when they brought in a little boy who had collapsed at a youth basketball game. His uncle had carried him in, this tall man with dark hair and calm gray eyes who stayed remarkably composed while I checked the boy's vitals and called for the attending physician. Most family members panicked or got in the way. This man stepped back exactly far enough to be out of our workspace but close enough to be present, answering our questions with precision and keeping his nephew calm with a steady stream of reassurance. "You're doing great, Jamie. These folks are the best. You're going to be fine." It turned out to be severe dehydration and low blood sugar, nothing life-threatening, easily treated. While we got N4 started and waited for test results, I found the uncle in the waiting room, sitting with his elbows on his knees, finally showing the strain of worry. "He's going to be okay," I told him. "We're getting fluids in him now. He'll probably feel better within the hour." The relief that crossed his face was genuine and unguarded. "Thank you." His mom, my sister, she's deployed overseas. Military. I'm watching him while she's gone, and I thought, he didn't finish the sentence. "You did exactly right, bringing him in." He extended his hand. "Nathan Harper. Vanessa Brennan." His handshake was firm and warm, and when he smiled, something in my chest did a small, unexpected flip. He stayed until Jamie was released, and as I walked them out at the end of my shift, he asked if he could buy me coffee sometime to thank me properly. I should have said no. I was exhausted, not looking for complications, and generally suspicious of men who were that good-looking and that calm in emergencies. But there was something about the way he looked at me, direct and interested and without any of the usual games, that made me say yes. Our first coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into long walks along the National Mall, conversations that stretched past midnight, weekends exploring small towns in Virginia's countryside. Nathan was unlike anyone I had dated before. He was attentive without being clingy, intelligent without being arrogant, and he had this quality of presence, of being fully engaged in every moment, that made me feel seen in a way I hadn't experienced before. He told me he worked in international security consultation, advising corporations on risk management in unstable regions. It explained his travel schedule, the occasional week or two abroad, the way he seemed to know things about world events before they hit the news. It explained his vigilance, the way he always sat facing the door in restaurants, the way he noticed things other people missed. What I didn't know, what he didn't tell me until 6 months into our relationship, was that his real employer wasn't a private firm. It was the Central Intelligence Agency. We were sitting on the roof deck of his apartment building in Arlington, watching the sun set over the Potomac, when he turned to me with an expression I had never seen before. Serious. Almost sad. "I need to tell you something, and after I do, you're going to need to decide if you can live with it." I set down my wine glass, suddenly cold despite the warm evening. I don't work for Harmon Global Security. That's my cover. I work for the CIA. I'm a case officer, which means I recruit and handle intelligence sources in foreign countries. The travel I do isn't for corporate consulting. It's for operations that I can never tell you about, in places I often can't name, doing things that would keep you awake at night if you knew the details. The traffic sounds from Route 50 seemed very far away. A plane crossed the darkening sky, its lights blinking steady and small. Why are you telling me this now? Because I'm in love with you, he said simply. And if we're going to build something real, you need to know what you're signing up for. I will miss birthdays and anniversaries. There will be times I can't tell you where I am or when I'm coming back. You'll lie awake wondering if I'm safe, and I won't be able to comfort you. People will ask what your husband does, and you'll have to repeat the same cover story until it feels like a betrayal of who you are. And if something happens to you? Someone in a suit will come to the door and tell you I died in a car accident abroad, or a robbery gone wrong, or whatever story fits the circumstances. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. You'll never know the truth. I should have walked away. Every rational part of my brain said this was too complicated, too dangerous, too much to ask. But I looked at this man who was offering me honesty instead of comfortable lies, who was giving me a choice instead of making it for me, and I realized I had already decided. Do you have to do this job? No. I could resign tomorrow. But you don't want to. He hesitated. I'm good at it. The work matters. I've stopped things from happening, Vanessa. Terrible things. I've saved lives in ways I can never take credit for. I know that sounds self-important, but it doesn't. I took his hand. It sounds like truth. We sat there as the sky went from amber to purple to black, working through the implications and the boundaries, the rules we would need to follow, the precautions that would become second nature. He couldn't tell me operational details, but he would always let me know he was safe when he could. I couldn't share information about his real work with anyone, not friends, not family, not even in the vaguest terms. Our life would be built on a foundation of partial truths and necessary silences. I can do this, I told him as the first stars appeared above the city. But I need you to promise me something. Anything. If it ever becomes too dangerous, if staying in this work puts us at risk, you walk away. No heroics. No greater good arguments. Us first. He pulled me close, and I felt him nod against my hair. Us first. I promise. We got married 8 months later in a small ceremony at a bed and breakfast in Shenandoah Valley. My parents were there, my brother Ethan, a handful of close friends. Nathan's side was smaller, which he explained away as the reality of having a family scattered across different states and demanding jobs. I didn't learn until years later that most of the guests on his side were agency colleagues playing the role of civilian friends and relatives, there to maintain his cover even at his own wedding. Lily was born 2 years after that, arriving 3 weeks early on a snowy February morning while Nathan was supposedly in Singapore for a security conference. He made it home 6 hours after her birth, his cover story involving flight delays and desperate rebooking, though I suspected the truth was more complicated. When he held her for the first time, tears streaming down his face, I saw something shift in him. A deepening of stakes. A new weight of responsibility. She's perfect, he whispered. She's absolutely perfect. Life found its rhythm after that. I reduced my hours at the hospital to part-time, wanting to be present for Lily's early years. Nathan's trips abroad continued but became slightly less frequent. We bought the townhouse in Alexandria with its postage stamp yard and neighbors who grilled on weekends and complained about parking. We planted tomatoes that never quite thrived in the shady garden. We attended parent-teacher conferences and birthday parties and neighborhood block parties. To everyone around us, we were exactly what we appeared to be. A normal family. A nurse married to a security consultant. A little girl who loved unicorns and refused to eat anything green. Dogs barked. Sprinklers ran. Life happened in its ordinary, precious way. But there were signs, if you knew to look. The way Nathan never used the same route twice when driving. The extra locks on our doors, more sophisticated than any of our neighbors. The conversation we had when Lily was 4 about stranger danger that went deeper than typical parental caution. The fact that Nathan never, ever posted photos of us on any form of social media, and asked me to do the same. Just a personal preference, he said. I like keeping our life private. I honored it, though it meant fielding questions from friends who couldn't understand why I wouldn't share pictures of Lily's first day of school or our family vacation to the beach. In an age of oversharing, our reticence made us strange. But it also, I thought, kept us safe. My best friend Claire was one of the few people who occasionally pushed back on the secrecy. We had been friends since nursing school, bonded over brutal clinicals and worse coffee, and she knew me well enough to sense when I was holding back. You know you can tell me anything, right? She said one afternoon while our daughters played at the park. If something's wrong, if Nathan's in trouble or you're having problems, we're fine, I interrupted, watching Lily go down the slide for the 40th time. Really? He just travels a lot for work, and it's stressful sometimes, but we're okay. She studied me with the expression of someone who wanted to believe but couldn't quite manage it. Okay. But if that changes, you'll be the first call. Except she wouldn't be. If something went wrong, if Nathan's work followed him home, I wouldn't be able to explain it to anyone. I would have to carry that weight alone, protecting his cover even as my world fell apart. I thought about that sometimes late at night when he was gone and the house felt too quiet. I thought about what I had signed up for, what I had promised to accept. But then Nathan would come home, tired and sometimes distant for the first day as he transitioned back from whatever he had been doing, and then gradually he would return to us fully. He would help Lily with her homework and fix the leaky faucet I had been ignoring. He would pull me close in the darkness and whisper, "Thank you for waiting, thank you for understanding, thank you for being my constant in a world where everything else shifts." And I would think, yes, this is worth it. This strange, careful life we've built is worth every compromise. Until the afternoon my phone rang with a blocked number, and my husband's frightened voice said they know about Lily, and I realized that all our precautions, all our careful boundaries, hadn't been enough. The foundation we had built our life on was crumbling, and I didn't even know why. The address Nathan had left in the blue duffel bag led us to a cabin outside Asheville, North Carolina. It took us 9 hours of driving, stopping only for gas and bathroom breaks at rest stops where I kept Lily close and watched every face that passed. She fell asleep somewhere past Richmond, her head tilted against the car window, and I was grateful for the silence that let me think. Except thinking only made everything worse. Every question spawned 10 more, and none of them had answers. Who were these people Nathan had warned me about? What had he done that put us in danger? How long had he known this was coming? The blue duffel contained cash, 3 prepaid cell phones, a handgun I barely knew how to use, and a single sheet of paper with the cabin address and a phone number I was supposed to call once we arrived. No explanation. No context. Just instructions delivered in Nathan's efficient handwriting. The cabin sat at the end of a gravel road that wound through dense pine forest, invisible from the main highway. It was small and weathered, with a green metal roof and a porch that sagged slightly on one side. The key was exactly where the instructions said it would be, tucked under a rock painted to look like a ladybug near the front steps. Inside, the place smelled like old wood and mouse droppings. There was a wood stove, a kitchenette with a 2-burner stove, a bathroom with rust stains in the sink, and 2 bedrooms barely large enough for their double beds. Someone had left supplies recently. The refrigerator held milk, eggs, bread, peanut butter. The cupboards contained canned soup and pasta. Whoever had stocked this place knew we were coming. I carried Lily inside, still sleeping, and laid her on one of the beds. She didn't wake even as I pulled off her shoes and covered her with a scratchy wool blanket I found in the closet. For a long moment, I stood there watching her breathe, this small perfect person who had no idea her entire world had just been yanked out from under her. The prepaid phone rang at exactly 9 p.m. I answered before the second ring. "You made it." Nathan's voice was rough with exhaustion. "Where are you?" Somewhere I can't name. Are you both safe? Is Lily okay? She's asleep. She thinks we're on an adventure. Nathan, what the hell is happening? There was a long pause filled with the hiss of a bad connection. When he spoke again, his voice was lower, more careful. 6 months ago, I was running an operation in Budapest. We had an asset, someone high up in an organization that traffics in weapons and intelligence. He was giving us everything. Names, shipment routes, financial networks. We were building a case that would have taken down some very dangerous people. Okay. 3 weeks ago, the asset was killed. Execution style. Which meant someone inside knew about him. There's a leak, Vanessa. Someone in the agency is feeding information to the people we're trying to stop. My hand tightened on the phone. And they think it's you. No. Worse. They know it's not me, which makes me a threat because I'm close enough to the operation to identify who it actually is. So they're trying to leverage me into silence. By threatening us. By making it clear that if I pursue this, if I keep pushing to find the leak, you and Lily will pay the price. They sent me a photo yesterday. Lily, walking out of school. You, at the grocery store. They wanted me to know how easy it would be. The cabin suddenly felt very cold despite the stuffy air. So what do? We can't hide here forever. You're not going to. I have people I trust working on this, but it's going to take time. A few weeks, maybe a month. You need to stay off grid until we can identify the leak and eliminate the threat. A month? Nathan, Lily has school. I have a job. My parents are going to lose their minds when I don't return their calls. I know. I know what I'm asking. But the alternative, his voice cracked slightly. I can't let anything happen to you. Either of you. You're everything I have that matters. I walked to the window, looking out at darkness so complete I couldn't see where the forest ended and the sky began. You promised me once. If it got too dangerous, you would walk away. Us first, remember? I remember. Then walk away. Resign. Come here with us and let someone else solve this. The silence on the other end stretched so long I thought we had been disconnected. Then Nathan exhaled slowly. If I walk away now, they win. The leak keeps feeding intelligence to people who will use it to kill more assets, to undermine operations that keep people safe. And the person doing it stays in position, able to cause more damage. I don't care about operations. I care about our daughter. And if I let this go, if I back down, what kind of man does that make me? What do I tell Lily when she's older and asks why I chose the easy path instead of the right one? You tell her you chose your family. You tell her some things matter more than the job. Vanessa, no. My voice came out harder than I intended. You don't get to do this. You don't get to wrap yourself in nobility and duty while we're hiding in a cabin in the woods because of choices you made. This isn't about right and wrong. This is about you deciding your work is more important than our safety. That's not fair. None of this is fair. Fair was the life we had 3 days ago. Fair was taking our daughter to school and making dinner and worrying about normal things. You took that away when you decided fighting your battle was worth more than protecting your family. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. In the bedroom, Lily stirred but didn't wake. I sat down on the sagging couch and put my head in my hands, and for the first time since that phone call in my kitchen, I let myself cry. The days that followed blurred together in a haze of anxious monotony. I couldn't let Lily go outside where she might be seen, so we stayed inside the dim cabin while autumn sunshine mocked us through the windows. I made up games and read her the same 3 children's books I had grabbed from our house over and over until we both had them memorized. She asked about her friends, about her teacher Miss Holbrook, about when we were going home. Soon, baby. This is just a little break. But I miss my room. And my stuffed animals. Why couldn't we bring Mr. Whiskers? We had to leave fast. I'm sorry. She accepted this with the resilience of childhood, finding ways to be happy with coloring books and the checkerboard I found in a closet. But I saw the confusion in her eyes, the way she startled at unexpected sounds, the anxiety that was starting to root itself in her small body because children know, on some level, when the adults around them are afraid. Nathan called every night at 9 p.m., his voice tight with stress he tried to hide. He told me they were making progress, that his team was narrowing down the list of potential suspects, that it wouldn't be much longer. But he never gave me specifics, and I stopped asking because the answers only made me more angry. On the 5th night, I confronted what I had been avoiding. I need to call my parents. They've probably already filed a missing persons report. You can't. Not yet. They're my parents, Nathan. They're terrified. And if you call them, you'll have to lie about where you are and why. You're not good at lying, Vanessa. They'll hear it in your voice, and they'll push, and you might slip. We can't risk it. So they just get to suffer? Thinking something terrible happened to us? I've had someone reach out anonymously. They know you're safe. That has to be enough. But it wasn't enough. I thought about my mother, who called every Sunday evening without fail. My father, who still thought of me as his little girl even though I was 36 years old. My brother Ethan, who would be frantically checking hospitals and morgues. The pain I was causing them felt like a betrayal, and yet I had no choice but to let it continue. Claire called my cell phone 17 times in the first week. I watched it ring and didn't answer, knowing I couldn't trust myself to maintain the lie. After the 17th call, she sent a text message that made my throat tight. Wherever you are, whatever's happening, I love you. When you're ready, I'm here. I wanted to respond. I wanted to tell her everything. But Nathan's warnings echoed too loudly, so I deleted the message and turned off the phone. By the 2nd week, Lily was getting harder to manage. She was bored and restless, missing her routine, starting to ask questions that had sharper edges. Why can't I call Grandma? Why can't I go outside? When is Daddy coming? Why won't you tell me what's happening? It's complicated, sweetheart. I'm not a baby. I'm 7. I can understand complicated. She was right, of course. She deserved more than my evasions and half-truths. But how do you explain to a 7-year-old that her father works for the CIA and someone is trying to hurt them because of secrets and betrayals she couldn't possibly comprehend? How do you maintain her innocence while also preparing her for the reality that the world is sometimes cruel in ways that have nothing to do with fairness or justice? That night, after Lily fell asleep, I made a decision. I called the prepaid number, and when Nathan answered, I didn't let him speak first. 2 more weeks. That's all I'm giving you. If this isn't resolved by then, we're coming out of hiding. I'll take Lily to my parents' house, and we'll deal with whatever comes. But I'm not doing this to her anymore. The damage we're causing might be worse than the threat we're hiding from. Vanessa, please, 2 weeks, Nathan. Fix this, or I'm fixing it my own way. I hung up before he could argue, and for the first time since we arrived at the cabin, I slept through the night without startling awake at every sound. The break came on day 16. Nathan called at 2 in the afternoon instead of 9 at night, and I knew immediately something had changed. We found him. The leak. It's over. I sank into the nearest chair, legs suddenly weak. Are you sure? We have evidence. Emails, financial records, everything we need. He's being taken into custody as we speak. The people he was working with, they're being rounded up. It's going to take some time to process everything, but the immediate threat is gone. So we can go home. Yes. You can go home. Something in his voice made me pause. Nathan, what aren't you telling me? There was a long silence, and I heard voices in the background, official sounding, clipped. I need to stay here for debriefing. There's going to be an investigation, testimonies, a lot of cleanup. I'm looking at least 3 months before I can come back. 3 months. Maybe longer. This is going to be complicated, and they're going to want to make sure every detail is documented. But you and Lily, you're safe now. That's what matters. I looked around the cabin that had been our prison for more than 2 weeks, at the water stains on the ceiling and the mouse traps in the corners and the windows I hadn't been able to open because I was afraid of who might see. When you come back, we need to have a very long conversation about what happens next. I know. Because I can't do this again. I can't live like this, always waiting for the other shoe to drop, always wondering if today is the day your work destroys our family. I know, he said again, and this time I heard something that might have been resignation or might have been relief. I know, Vanessa. I promise, when I get home, we'll figure it out. But as I packed up our things and prepared to drive back to Alexandria with Lily, who was overjoyed at the thought of sleeping in her own bed again, I wondered if promises made by men who lived in shadows could ever really hold weight in the daylight. The house on Oakmont Drive looked exactly as we had left it, except the lasagna I had abandoned in the oven had been cleaned up by someone. I found a note on the kitchen counter in handwriting I didn't recognize, brief and impersonal. Premises secured. Perishables disposed of. Lock code changed to 4729. No signature. No explanation of who had been in my home, touching my things, walking through rooms where my daughter slept. Lily ran through the house like she had been gone for years instead of weeks, checking that everything was still in place. Her stuffed animals, her art supplies, the growth chart marked on the doorframe of her bedroom. I followed behind her, seeing our home through new eyes, noticing things I had missed before. The sight lines from the street. The lack of a security system despite Nathan's insistence we didn't need one because he had taken other precautions. What precautions? I had never asked, had trusted that he knew better than I did how to keep us safe. That trust felt foolish now. I called my parents before unpacking, knowing I couldn't delay any longer. My mother answered on the first ring, and the sound of her voice, thick with tears and relief, nearly broke me. Vanessa? Oh my God, Vanessa, where have you been? We've been out of our minds. The police said you weren't missing, that someone confirmed you were safe, but they wouldn't tell us anything else. What happened? Where's Lily? Are you hurt? We're fine, Mom. We're home. I'm so sorry I couldn't call. It's complicated. Complicated? You disappeared for more than 2 weeks without a word. Your brother drove to your house 3 times. Claire has been calling me every day. What could possibly be so complicated that you couldn't let us know you were alive? I closed my eyes, leaning against the kitchen counter. It was Nathan's work. There was a security situation. I can't give you details, but we had to leave quickly and stay out of contact until it was resolved. A security situation? What does that even mean? What kind of security consultant has situations that require his family to vanish? Mom, please. I can't explain more than that. But it's over now. We're safe. That's what matters. I heard her say something to my father in the background, his deeper voice responding with words I couldn't make out. Then she was back, her tone shifting from relief to something harder. We're coming over. Tonight. We need to see Lily, and we need to talk about this. That's fine. Come for dinner. I'll make something. Except I didn't make anything. I ordered pizza because I couldn't focus long enough to cook, kept finding myself staring into the refrigerator without remembering what I was looking for. Lily helped me set the table, chattering about how she was going to tell Grandma and Grandpa about the cabin, about the checkers games and the books we read and the deer we saw through the window one morning. Maybe don't mention the cabin, sweetie. Let's keep that part just between us, okay? Like a special secret. She looked at me with those perceptive eyes that missed nothing. Why is it a secret? Because Grandma and Grandpa might worry. And there's nothing to worry about anymore, so we don't need to make them upset over something that's already finished. But you always say secrets are bad. Some secrets are just private things. Family things. It's different. I could see her working through this logic, trying to reconcile what I was telling her with what she had learned about honesty and openness. In the end, she nodded slowly, but I saw the confusion behind it, the way I was teaching her that truth was conditional and situational. Another small wound in the foundation of her understanding. My parents arrived at 6:30, my mother sweeping Lily into a hug so tight I heard her squeak in protest. My father held me at arm's length, studying my face with the intensity of someone looking for evidence of trauma or lies. He was a retired engineer, methodical and analytical, and I knew he wouldn't let this go as easily as my mother might. "You look tired," he said finally. "It's been a long few weeks." Over pizza that no one really ate, I repeated the story I had told my mother, adding no details, deflecting questions with vague references to protocols and procedures. Lily, true to her promise, said nothing about the cabin, but I could see the effort it took, the way she bit her lip when my mother asked where we had stayed. A safe location arranged through Nathan's company. That's all I can really say. My brother Ethan arrived halfway through dinner, having driven straight from his job in Baltimore when my mother called to tell him we were back. He wrapped me in a hug that lasted longer than usual, and when he pulled back, his expression was serious. "You know we were about to hire a private investigator, right? Another few days and we would have been on the news making appeals." "I'm sorry. I didn't know it would take that long." "Where's Nathan?" "Still traveling. Wrapping up the situation that caused all this." Ethan exchanged a look with my father, one of those masculine communications that happens without words. "You know his story doesn't really add up, right?" "I've been doing some research. International security consultants don't usually require their families to disappear. That's more like witness protection level stuff." "Ethan, please. Not now." But he pressed on, his voice gentle but insistent. "I'm not trying to make things harder. I'm trying to understand what's really going on. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're covering for something, and that worries me." My mother put a hand on his arm. "Your sister said it's handled. Let's just be grateful they're home safe." "Mom, you can't really believe," I said. "Let it go." The tension around the table was thick enough to cut. Lily had gone quiet, picking at her pizza crust, sensing the undercurrents she couldn't name. I forced a smile, changed the subject to her upcoming school year, the classes she was excited about, the friends she hadn't seen in weeks. The conversation limped forward, but the questions hung in the air, unanswered and multiplying. After my parents left, after Lily was in bed, I sat in the dark living room and acknowledged what I had been avoiding. My family didn't believe me. Claire would have the same doubts when I finally faced her. Our neighbors would wonder where we had been. And I had no good answers for any of them because the truth was classified and the lies were transparent. Nathan called at 9, right on schedule, and I answered with a weariness that went bone deep. "We're home. My family knows we're safe. They also know something is very wrong, and I have no way to explain it to them. I'm sorry. I know this is hard. Hard doesn't even begin to cover it. Do you have any idea what it's like to lie to the people who love you most? To see them looking at you like they don't know who you are anymore?" "Yes," he said quietly. "I do. Every single day." The honesty in his voice deflated some of my anger. I had been so focused on what this life cost me that I had forgotten it cost him too. The constant deception, the isolation, the impossibility of real intimacy when so much had to remain hidden. We had both chosen this, in our own ways, but the choosing didn't make it easier. "When are you coming home?" 3 weeks, maybe 4. There's a lot to sort through. And then what? We just go back to normal? Pretend this didn't happen? Then we talk. Really talk. About what we want our life to look like going forward. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to think that conversation would lead somewhere other than more compromise, more careful silences, more pretending. But belief required trust, and trust had been damaged by too many secrets kept for too many years. The next morning, I took Lily back to Riverside Elementary. Miss Holbrook met us at the classroom door, her face bright with welcome and relief. "Lily. We've missed you so much. Family emergency all resolved?" "Yes, thank you. Everything's fine now. Wonderful. Lily, your classmates made you welcome back cards. They're on your desk. I watched my daughter disappear into the classroom, absorbed immediately into the world of 8-year-olds and their uncomplicated friendships. Miss Holbrook touched my arm gently. If you need anything, any extra support for Lily while she transitions back, just let me know. Sometimes unexpected disruptions can be harder on kids than we realize. I'll keep that in mind. Thank you. I made it to my car before the tears came, sudden and overwhelming. I sat in the school parking lot and cried for everything I couldn't name, all the losses and fears and impossible choices that had brought us to this moment. Other parents walked past, some glancing at me with concern, but no one stopped. In suburban America, you respected privacy, even when someone was clearly falling apart in full view. Claire called that afternoon. I had been avoiding her, letting calls go to voicemail, but I couldn't do it anymore. She deserved better than silence. I'm coming over, she said when I answered. Don't argue. I'm bringing wine. She arrived an hour later with 2 bottles of expensive red and a determination I recognized. We had been through too much together for her to accept vague explanations and deflection. She poured us both generous glasses, sat across from me at my kitchen table, and waited. Where were you really? I can't tell you specifics. Nathan's work required us to relocate temporarily for security reasons. Security reasons. Vanessa, normal people don't have security reasons. What does Nathan actually do? I took a long drink of wine, feeling it burn down my throat. He's a security consultant. He works with international clients in high-risk situations. That's the cover story. What's the truth? The word cover slipped out before I could catch it, and I saw Claire's eyes sharpen. She had always been perceptive, reading between lines that most people missed entirely. Now she leaned forward, her voice dropping. He works for the government, doesn't he? Not some private firm. The actual government. I can't confirm that. You just did. Oh my God. All this time, all these years of weird excuses and last-minute trips and not posting photos online. He's what, CIA? FBI? Claire, please. I can't have this conversation. Why not? I'm your best friend. You think I'm going to run to the press? It's not about trust. It's about protecting you. The less you know, the safer you are. She sat back, processing this, her expression cycling through shock and concern and something that looked like betrayal. How long have you known? Since before we got married. He told me early, gave me the choice to walk away. And you stayed. Even knowing it would be like this. I loved him. I thought I could handle it. And now? That was the question, wasn't it? The one I had been circling around since that phone call 17 days ago. Could I still handle this? Did love excuse the fear, the deception, the way my daughter was learning to keep secrets before she was old enough to understand why? I didn't have an answer, so I gave Claire the only truth I could. Now I don't know. We drank the wine in heavy silence, the kind of quiet that exists between people who have shared too much to pretend anymore. When she left, she hugged me tightly and whispered, "Whatever you decide, I'm with you. Always." The days crept forward. Lily returned to her normal routine, though I noticed changes in her. She was quieter, more watchful. She startled at loud noises and asked me multiple times a day where I was going when I left the room. The cabin had marked her in ways I was only beginning to understand. I made an appointment with a child therapist, someone who specialized in anxiety and trauma. During our first session, while Lily played with toys in the corner, the therapist asked me careful questions about what had happened, and I gave careful answers that revealed almost nothing. Afterward, she suggested regular sessions to help Lily process the disruption, and I agreed, knowing I was treating symptoms without addressing the cause. Nathan called every night, but our conversations grew shorter, more strained. He told me about the progress of the investigation, how the leak had compromised multiple operations, how the fallout was more extensive than anyone had anticipated. He sounded exhausted, ground down by the weight of what had unfolded. I keep thinking about all the people who got hurt because someone we trusted sold us out. Assets who trusted us with their lives. Operations that were supposed to make people safer. All of it corrupted. That's not your fault. Isn't it? I should have seen it sooner. Should have questioned more. You can't carry responsibility for someone else's betrayal. But even as I said it, I wondered if I believed it. Because Nathan's choices had consequences that rippled outward, touching people he would never meet, creating dangers he couldn't always predict or control. And my daughter and I had become part of that ripple, caught in currents we had no way to navigate. 3 weeks after we returned home, I got a call from an unlisted number. Not Nathan's voice this time, but a woman's, professional and carefully neutral. Mrs. Harper, this is Agent Reyes with the Office of Security. I'm calling to schedule a debriefing regarding the recent security incident involving your family. A debriefing? Standard procedure. We need to document what happened from your perspective, ensure proper protocols were followed. Discuss any ongoing security concerns. It won't take long. Would tomorrow afternoon work for you? I wanted to say no, to refuse this intrusion into my life by people I had never asked to be involved with. But I knew refusal wasn't really an option, so I agreed to meet her the next day at a coffee shop in Arlington, neutral territory where we could talk without raising questions. Agent Reyes was younger than I expected, maybe early 30s, with dark hair pulled into a neat bun and eyes that cataloged everything without seeming to look directly at anything. We ordered coffee we didn't drink and sat at a corner table far from other customers. I want to start by saying how sorry we are for what you experienced. The situation was handled as efficiently as possible, but we understand it was extremely disruptive and frightening. Is this the part where you ask me to sign something promising I'll never talk about it? She smiled faintly. We'll get to paperwork. First, I need to ask you some questions about the timeline, your communications with your husband, whether you noticed anything unusual before or after the incident. For an hour, she walked me through those 16 days, taking notes on a tablet, occasionally asking for clarification. I answered mechanically, reliving it all with the emotional distance I had learned to cultivate when dealing with difficult patients in the ER. When it was done, she pulled out a folder containing several documents. These are standard non-disclosure agreements. They formalize what you already understand, that you can't discuss the specifics of what happened or your husband's actual work. There are penalties for violations, but honestly, we rely more on people's common sense than legal threats. I signed where she indicated, my signature feeling like one more surrender in a long series of them. One more thing, Agent Reyes said as she gathered the papers. We've assigned a security assessment to your home. Someone will contact you to schedule an evaluation and recommend upgrades. Given what happened, we want to ensure your residence meets appropriate safety standards. You're going to turn my house into a fortress. More like making sure the locks are adequate and there are no obvious vulnerabilities. Small changes that make a big difference. After she left, I sat in my car and stared at the documents in my lap. This was my life now, officially documented and legally constrained. I had signed away even the possibility of honest conversation, bound myself to secrecy with the full weight of federal law behind it. And I had done it voluntarily, because what choice did I really have? That night, when Nathan called, I told him about the meeting. Agent Reyes seemed nice enough. Very thorough. She's good at her job. I'm glad they're taking care of the security assessment. I've been worried about the house. Nathan, I need to know something, and I need you to answer honestly. Okay. Is this ever going to stop? The threats, the precautions, the constant vigilance? Or is this just what life is now? He was quiet for a long time. In the background, I heard traffic sounds, the distant wail of a siren. I don't know. I wish I could promise you it's over, that we'll never face anything like this again. But I can't predict every threat or eliminate every risk. All I can do is be as careful as possible and hope it's enough. That's not very reassuring. No, he agreed. It's not. We said goodnight without the usual endearments, both of us too tired to pretend comfort we didn't feel. After I hung up, I checked on Lily, found her sleeping with Mr. Whiskers clutched to her chest, her face peaceful in the dim glow of her nightlight. This small person who trusted me completely to keep her safe, to make good choices, to protect her from harm. I wasn't sure I could keep that promise anymore. And the weight of that uncertainty was crushing. Nathan came home on a Tuesday afternoon in late November, 3 days before Thanksgiving. I was folding laundry in the living room when I heard his key in the lock, a sound that should have been familiar but felt foreign after 2 months of absence. He looked thinner than I remembered, shadows under his eyes that hadn't been there before, and when he set down his bag and reached for me, I let him hold me but didn't fully return the embrace. Lily had no such reservations. She flew down the stairs at the sound of his voice and launched herself into his arms with such force he staggered backward. He buried his face in her hair, and I saw his shoulders shake with emotion he had been holding back for too long. I missed you so much, Bug. So much. I missed you too, Daddy. Are you staying now? You're not going away again? Not for a while. I'm home. We ordered Chinese food for dinner because none of us had the energy for anything more complicated. Lily talked non-stop, filling Nathan in on everything he had missed at school, the new girl in her class, the science project about volcanoes, the book fair where she had spent her allowance on 3 new stories. He listened with complete attention, asking questions, laughing at her jokes, being fully present in a way he sometimes struggled with when his mind was still half in whatever operation he had just left. But I saw the effort it took. The way his smile didn't quite reach his eyes. The tension in his shoulders that never fully released. He was home physically, but part of him was still back in whatever room he had spent the last 2 months in, sorting through betrayals and consequences. After Lily went to bed, we sat on opposite ends of the couch with mugs of tea neither of us drank, and the silence between us felt like a living thing, thick and uncomfortable. I know we need to talk, Nathan said finally. I know I owe you more than I've given. But I don't know where to start. Start with the truth. All of it. Not the sanitized version you think I can handle, but what actually happened and why our daughter and I had to spend more than 2 weeks hiding in a cabin in the woods. He set down his mug and ran his hands through his hair, a gesture of stress I had seen countless times over the years. The operation in Budapest was supposed to be straightforward. We had an asset who was giving us critical intelligence about an arms trafficking network operating across Eastern Europe. This wasn't small-scale stuff, Vanessa. We're talking weapons that could destabilize entire regions, technology that could end up in the hands of groups who would use it against civilians. I understand the stakes were high. The asset was brave. Incredibly brave. He knew the risks and did it anyway because he believed in what we were trying to accomplish. And then someone inside the agency, someone with access to classified information, fed his identity to the very people we were investigating. They killed him. Made it look like a random street crime, but we knew better. I watched his face as he spoke, saw the guilt written in every line. You blame yourself. I recruited him. I promised him we would keep him safe. And we failed. No. Someone else failed. Someone who betrayed everything you were working toward. But I should have been more careful. Should have limited who had access to the information. Should have suspected that someone might be compromised. You're not psychic, Nathan. You can't predict every threat or anticipate every betrayal. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something in his expression I hadn't expected. Brokenness. This man who was always so controlled, so competent, was genuinely shattered by what had happened. When they threatened you and Lily, when I realized they knew exactly where you were and what your routines looked like, I understood for the first time what we had really been risking. Not just my life or my career, but everything that actually matters. And I knew I had been arrogant to think I could keep those worlds separate. So what changed? How did you find the leak? We set a trap. Fed false information through different channels and waited to see which version got back to the traffickers. It took weeks of careful coordination, but eventually we identified the source. A senior analyst who had been feeding intelligence for almost 3 years. He was motivated by money, not ideology, which somehow makes it worse. Why worse? Because ideology at least has conviction behind it, misguided as it might be. This was just greed. He sold out people who trusted us, who risked everything, for a bigger bank account. Nathan's voice had gone flat, drained of emotion, and I recognized this as his protective mechanism. When things hurt too much, he went cold, locked everything down until he could process it in private. But I wasn't going to let him retreat this time. What happens to him now? He's facing charges for espionage, conspiracy, and a dozen other federal crimes. He'll spend the rest of his life in prison, assuming he survives it. People in our world don't react kindly to traitors. And the people he was working with? The ones who threatened us? Most of them are in custody or dead. A few are still at large, but they're no longer organized enough to pose a direct threat. The network has been effectively dismantled. I absorbed this, trying to feel relief that should have come with those words. But instead, I felt a creeping dread that had nothing to do with immediate danger and everything to do with what this all meant for our future. You said when you came back we would have a real conversation about what happens next. So let's have it. What does our life look like from here? Nathan leaned forward, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor between his feet. I'd been offered a position. Training role, mostly domestic. I would still be with the agency, but I wouldn't be running field operations anymore. Fewer trips abroad, more predictable schedule, significantly less risk. But you don't want it. I didn't say that. You don't have to. I can hear it in your voice. You think it would be settling, giving up the work that matters most. He lifted his head, meeting my eyes. I think it would be choosing my family over my ego. There are other people who can run operations. Good people. But there's only one person who can be Lily's father, and only one person who gets to be your husband. And I'd been doing a terrible job of both while telling myself I was serving some greater purpose. The honesty in his words caught me off guard. I had prepared myself for arguments, for justifications, for him trying to convince me that the work was too important to walk away from. Instead, he was offering what I thought I wanted. So why didn't I feel the relief I expected? If you take this training position, will you resent us for it? Will there be some part of you that looks at Lily and me and thinks about everything you gave up? No. God, no. Vanessa, you and Lily are the only real things in my life. Everything else is smoke and shadows and games played in dark rooms by people who will never trust each other completely. I'm tired of that world. I'm ready to live in the light. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to think it could be that simple, that he could just choose differently and everything would be fine. But I had spent 12 years watching him struggle with the impossible balance between the person he was at home and the person he became when he walked into Langley. Those identities had bled together until I wasn't always sure which version I was talking to. What about the part of you that needs the adrenaline, the sense of purpose, the feeling that you're making a difference? That doesn't just disappear because you take a different job. Then I'll find other ways to channel it. Coach Lily's soccer team, volunteer with veterans organizations, teach self-defense classes at the community center. There are 1,000 ways to contribute without putting my family at risk. And if it's not enough? If 6 months from now you're climbing the walls and second-guessing this decision? Then we'll deal with it together. But I have to try, Vanessa. I have to know if I can do this, be the husband and father you both deserve, before it's too late and I've lost you completely. The raw vulnerability in his voice finally cracked through my defenses. I moved across the couch and into his arms, and this time when he held me, I held him back with everything I had. We sat like that for a long time, not talking, just breathing together and letting the weight of the last 2 months settle between us. I'm scared, I whispered against his chest. I'm scared that even if you take this job, even if you mean everything you're saying right now, something will happen. Another crisis, another threat, another impossible choice. And I don't know if I can go through that again. I'm scared too. But I'd rather try and fail than not try at all. The next morning, Nathan drove to Langley and formally accepted the training position. He came home that evening with paperwork to sign and a start date in January, and for the first time in months, I let myself imagine a different kind of future. One where dinner time was predictable and bedtime routines were consistent and Lily didn't have to wonder why Daddy was always somewhere else. Thanksgiving came and went in a blur of family and food and careful conversations where everyone worked hard to pretend everything was normal. My parents watched Nathan with guarded expressions, still not entirely convinced by the explanations we had offered. Ethan pulled me aside at one point and asked quietly if I was okay, really okay, and I told him I was getting there. Claire came over the weekend after Thanksgiving with her daughter Emma, and while the girls played upstairs, she studied Nathan with the frank assessment of someone who had earned the right to be protective. "So you're sticking around this time?" "That's the plan." "Good. Because Vanessa deserves better than what she's been getting, and if you can't give her that, there are plenty of people who would." Nathan didn't flinch from the implicit threat. "I know. She deserves everything, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to give it to her." Claire held his gaze for a long moment, then nodded once. "Okay then. Just don't make me regret giving you another chance." After she left, Nathan turned to me with a wry smile. "Your friend is terrifying. She's protective. You should be grateful you have her approval." "I am. Truly." December brought a sense of normalcy I hadn't felt in years. Nathan was home every night. He picked up Lily from school 3 days a week. He fixed the broken garage door and repainted the bathroom and did all the small domestic tasks he had never had time for before. On the surface, we looked like any other family in suburban Virginia, dealing with homework and grocery shopping and arguments about screen time. But underneath, I felt the adjustment happening in waves. Nathan was restless in a way he tried to hide, always looking for projects to occupy his hands and his mind. He went for long runs at odd hours, came back sweating and exhausted like he was trying to outrun something that followed him home from his old life. I would wake in the middle of the night and find him standing at the window, looking out at our quiet street with an expression I couldn't read. "Can't sleep?" I asked one night, coming up behind him and wrapping my arms around his waist. "Just thinking." "About what?" "About how strange it is to feel safe. I've spent so many years operating in threat mode, always scanning for danger, always planning escape routes. Now I'm here in our home, and my brain keeps insisting something must be wrong. Maybe you need to talk to someone. A therapist who specializes in this kind of transition." He tensed slightly. "Agency therapists are mandatory. I've been doing sessions twice a week since I got back." "I meant someone outside the agency. Someone you could actually be honest with." "I can't tell a civilian therapist what I did, Vanessa. That's not how this works." "Then what? You just white-knuckle it and hope the adjustment gets easier?" He turned to face me, his expression troubled. "I don't know. I'm making this up as I go, and I'm terrified I'm going to mess it up." "Then let me help. Talk to me when you're struggling. Don't hide it or pretend you're fine when you're not. We're supposed to be partners, but that only works if you let me in." "I'm trying. Some days are easier than others." We stood there in the darkness, holding each other while the house settled around us, and I thought about how recovery wasn't a straight line. It was messy and nonlinear, full of setbacks and small victories that looked insignificant from the outside. But we were trying, both of us, and that had to count for something. Christmas came with snow and lights and Lily's absolute delight at having both parents home for every tradition. We cut down a tree at a local farm, made cookies that were slightly burned but eaten anyway, watched holiday movies while drinking hot chocolate with too many marshmallows. Nathan threw himself into the festivities with an intensity that bordered on manic, determined to make up for all the holidays he had missed or shown up to exhausted and distracted. On Christmas morning, after the presents were opened and the wrapping paper was cleared away, Lily fell asleep on the couch in her new pajamas, worn out from excitement and sugar. Nathan and I sat on the floor beside her, backs against the couch, and watched the lights blink on the tree. "This is what I wanted," he said softly. "This exact moment. I just had to lose everything first to understand it." "You didn't lose everything. We're still here." "Barely. I came so close, Vanessa. Another few months of what we were doing, and you would have left. I could see it happening, the way you were pulling away, protecting yourself and Lily from the chaos I kept bringing home. I wasn't going to leave. I was angry and scared and exhausted, but I wasn't leaving. You should have. You should have taken Lily and built a life with someone stable and present and incapable of bringing danger to your doorstep. Someone who didn't make you lie to your family or hide in cabins or sign non-disclosure agreements. I took his hand, lacing our fingers together. But then I wouldn't have you. And despite everything, despite all the complications and fear and impossible situations, I still choose you. I just need you to keep choosing us back. Every day, he promised. Every single day for the rest of my life. The new year arrived with cautious optimism. Nathan started his new position, spending his days teaching young case officers the skills he had spent decades developing. He came home energized by the work, proud of the students who reminded him why he had joined the agency in the first place. The restlessness that had plagued him in December seemed to ease as he found purpose in passing on what he knew. But late one evening in mid-January, everything shifted again. Nathan came home from work with an expression I recognized, the one that meant something significant had happened. He waited until Lily was in bed before sitting me down at the kitchen table. There's been a development. Something I need to tell you about before you hear it somewhere else. My stomach dropped. What kind of development? The man who betrayed us, the analyst who caused all of this. He was killed in prison this morning. Another inmate, supposedly random violence, but we both know there's no such thing as coincidence in this world. I processed this slowly. Someone wanted him dead before he could reveal more. That's the working theory. He was cooperating with investigators, providing names and details about the network he had been feeding information to. Someone decided that was too risky. So it's not really over. The immediate threat to us is still gone. But the larger picture is more complicated than we thought. There are loose ends, people who might eventually connect dots we'd rather keep separated. The careful optimism I had been building crumbled. You're telling me we're never going to be completely safe. That this is always going to be hanging over us. I'm telling you that I can't guarantee perfect safety, but I can promise I'll do everything possible to protect you and Lily. The new security measures on the house, the protocols we have in place, the fact that I'm no longer in field operations, all of that reduces our risk significantly. But it doesn't eliminate it. No, he admitted. It doesn't eliminate it. I stood and walked to the window, looking out at our street where lights glowed in windows and cars sat in driveways and everything looked peaceful and normal. But I knew now that normal was an illusion, a thin veneer over the reality that danger could arrive without warning, that the choices Nathan had made years ago could echo forward in ways we couldn't predict or control. I need time to think about this. About what it means and whether I can live with it. I understand. Do you? Because I'm not sure you do. You've been living in this world for so long that uncertainty is normal for you. But for me, for Lily, we need stability. We need to know that when we go to sleep at night, we'll wake up in the same reality. I can't give you guarantees, Vanessa. No one can. The only thing I can promise is that I will never stop trying to keep you safe, and I will never again put my work ahead of my family. It wasn't enough. But it was all he had to offer, and I had to decide if that was something I could accept or if the cost of loving him had finally become too high. Spring arrived slowly that year, winter reluctant to release its grip on Virginia. I spent those cold months in a state of careful deliberation, weighing every factor, every risk, every possible future. Nathan gave me space, never pushing, never demanding an answer to questions I hadn't fully articulated. We existed in a strange limbo, going through the motions of family life while both knowing something fundamental had shifted. The decision came not in a single dramatic moment but in a series of small realizations that accumulated over weeks. I watched Nathan teach Lily to ride her bike without training wheels, running alongside her with patience and encouragement until she found her balance. I saw him volunteer at her school's career day, talking to second graders about problem solving and critical thinking without ever mentioning his actual work. I noticed the way he had started sleeping through the night, no longer startling awake at distant sounds or standing guard at windows. One evening in early April, I found him in the garage organizing tools with the methodical focus he brought to everything. I leaned against the doorframe and watched him work, this man who had chosen complexity when simplicity would have been easier, who carried burdens he could never fully share, who loved us imperfectly but completely. "I've made a decision," I said. He set down the wrench he was holding and turned to face me, his expression careful and guarded. "I'm staying. We're staying. But there are conditions." Something in his shoulders relaxed fractionally. "Tell me. If there's ever another threat, another situation where we have to run, you don't just send us away. We make decisions together about how to handle it. I don't care about protocols or procedures. We're partners or we're nothing." "Agreed. And you keep seeing the therapist, even after the mandatory sessions end. You work through whatever's still weighing on you instead of pretending you're fine." "I can do that." "Last thing. Every year, we reassess. We look honestly at whether this life is working for all of us, and if it's not, you walk away from the agency completely. No guilt, no second guessing. Us first, always." He crossed the garage and took my hands in his, calloused and warm. "Us first. I promise. Then we try. We keep trying, and we figure it out as we go." He pulled me close, and I felt the tension that had been living in both of us for months finally begin to ease. This wasn't a fairy tale ending with all problems solved and all fears erased. It was something more real and more valuable. It was a choice to keep choosing each other, even when the path forward was uncertain. Life settled into new rhythms after that. Nathan thrived in his teaching role, finding satisfaction in shaping the next generation of case officers to be smarter and more careful than he had been. Lily grew taller and more confident, her anxiety from the cabin incident fading as months passed without disruption. I returned to full-time work at the hospital, rediscovering the parts of myself that existed independent of wife and mother. We took a vacation that summer to the coast of Maine, just the three of us in a rented cottage with peeling paint and a view of the ocean. Lily collected shells and built sandcastles while Nathan and I sat on the beach and talked about everything and nothing. There were no blocked phone calls, no sudden departures, no shadows of his other life intruding on our time together. "I'm happy," he said one evening as we watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and purple. "Really, genuinely happy. I didn't think that was possible anymore." "It's possible. It's just harder than we thought it would be. Worth it though." "Yes. Worth it." The years that followed brought their own challenges, as all lives do. There were moments when Nathan's past reached forward in unexpected ways, old contacts resurfacing, news stories triggering memories he couldn't discuss. But we navigated them together, building trust brick by brick until the foundation felt solid again. Lily grew into a thoughtful teenager who asked hard questions about integrity and sacrifice and the cost of serving something larger than yourself. Nathan answered her honestly, within the boundaries of what he could share, and I watched her develop a nuanced understanding of morality that would serve her well in whatever path she chose. On our 20th wedding anniversary, Nathan took me back to the bed and breakfast in Shenandoah where we had married. We walked the same paths we had walked as newlyweds, older now and scarred by experiences we could never have imagined then. "Would you do it again?" he asked as we stood on the terrace where we had exchanged vows. "Knowing everything that was coming, would you still say yes?" I thought about the fear and the hiding and the lies I had to tell people I loved. I thought about the nights I lay awake wondering if he was safe, the moments when his work nearly destroyed our family, the price we all paid for his commitment to something I could never fully understand. But I also thought about the depth of character that work had forged in him, the way he had learned to choose us when every instinct screamed otherwise, the life we had built from honest struggle instead of easy comfort. "Yes," I said. I would say yes. Every single time. He kissed me then, and in that kiss was everything we had survived and everything we had become. We weren't the same people who had stood in this place 20 years earlier, bright with hope and naive about what lay ahead. We were better. Stronger. Real in ways that only come from walking through fire and choosing not to let it consume you. That night, lying beside him in the darkness, I thought about how love isn't about finding someone who makes life easy. It's about finding someone worth fighting for, worth staying for, worth rebuilding with when everything falls apart. Nathan had been that person for me, and I had been that for him, and together we had created something that couldn't be broken by threats or distance or the weight of secrets that could never be spoken. Our story wasn't simple or perfect. But it was ours, built from choices made in darkness and light, from promises kept even when keeping them cost everything. And that, I had learned, was enough. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.